This lecture covers health psychology. Health psychology investigates the psychological factors related to wellness and illness, including the prevention, diagnosis, and treatment of medical problems. Health psychologists investigate the effects of psychological factors such as stress on illness. They examine the psychological principles underlying treatments for disease and illness. They also study prevention, how healthier behavior can help avoid and reduce health problems such as stress and heart disease. Health psychologists take a decisive stand on the enduring mind-body issue. In their view, the mind and the body are clearly linked rather than representing two distinct systems. They have paid particular attention to the immune system, the complex system of organs, glands, and cells that constitute our body's natural line of defense in fighting disease. Health psychologists are among the primary investigators in a growing field called psychoneuroimmunology, or PNI, the study of the relationship among psychological factors, the immune system, and the brain. PNI has led to discoveries such as the existence of an association between a person's emotional state and the success of the immune system in fighting disease. In sum, health psychologists view the mind and the body as two parts of a whole human being that cannot be considered independently. One of the factors that can severely impact our health is stress. Stress refers to people's response to events that threaten or challenge them. Life is full of circumstances and events known as stressors that produce threats to our well-being. All of us face stress in our lives. Ultimately, our attempts to overcome stress may produce biological and psychological responses that result in health problems. Stress is a very personal thing. For people to consider an event stressful, they must perceive it as threatening or challenging and must lack all the resources to deal with it effectively. Consequently, the same event may at some times be stressful and at another times provoke no stressful reaction at all. Hence, a person's interpretation of events plays an important role in the determination of what is stressful. Stress can produce both biological and psychological consequences. Often the most immediate reaction to stress is biological. Exposure to stressors generates a rise in hormone secretions by the adrenal glands, an increase in heart rate and blood pressure, and changes in how well the skin conducts electrical impulses. On a short-term basis, these responses may be adaptive because they produce an emergency reaction in which the body prepares to defend itself through activation of the sympathetic nervous system. Those responses may allow for more effective coping with the stressful situation. However, continued exposure to stress results in a decline in the body's overall level of biological functioning because of the constant secretion of stress-related hormones. Efforts to control, reduce, or learn to tolerate the threats that lead to stress are known as coping. There are few different ways of coping. In emotion-focused coping, people try to manage their emotions in the face of stress by seeking to change the way they feel about or perceive the problem. Problem-focused coping attempts to modify the stressful problem or source of stress. Problem-focused strategies lead to changes in behavior or to the development of a plan of action to deal with stress. One of the least effective forms of coping is avoidant coping. In avoidant coping, a person may use wishful thinking to reduce stress or use more direct escape routes such as drug use, alcohol use, or overeating. Another way of dealing with stress occurs unconsciously through the use of defense mechanisms. Defense mechanisms are unconscious strategies that people use to reduce anxiety by concealing the source from themselves and others. Defense mechanisms permit people to avoid stress by acting as if the stress were not even there. Another defense mechanism used to cope with stress is emotional insulation, in which a person stops experiencing any emotions at all and thereby remains unaffected and unmoved by both positive and negative experiences. Learned helplessness occurs when people conclude that unpleasant or aversive stimuli cannot be controlled, a view of the world that becomes so ingrained that they stop trying to change the aversive circumstances, even if they actually can exert some influence on the situation. People who suffer from learned helplessness may experience more physical symptoms and depression. Among those who cope with stress most successfully are people who are equipped with hardiness, a personality characteristic associated with a lower rate of stress-related illness. Hardiness consists of three components: commitment, challenge, and control. Commitment is a tendency to throw ourselves into whatever we are doing with a sense that our activities are important and meaningful. Hardy people also believe that change rather than stability is the standard condition of life. They believe in challenges. They see obstacles as challenges and they seek out challenges. Hardiness is also marked by a sense of control, the perception that people can influence the events in their lives. Stress-hardy people are also more resilient. Resilience is the ability to withstand, overcome, and actually thrive after profound adversity. Resilient people are generally optimistic, good natured, and have good social skills. They are usually independent and they have a sense of control over their own destiny. Our relationships with others also help us cope with stress. Researchers have found that social support, the knowledge that we are part of a mutual network of caring, interested others, enables us to experience lower levels of stress and better cope with the stress that we undergo. Health psychologists are also interested in the topic of happiness. They investigate subjective well-being, which is people's sense of their happiness and satisfaction with their lives. So, what are the characteristics of happy people? Happy people have high self-esteem and they generally like themselves. Happy people have a firm sense of control. They feel more in control of events in their lives, unlike those who feel they are at the mercy of others and who experience learned helplessness. Happy individuals are also optimistic. Their optimism permits them to manage difficulties and ultimately to achieve more. Men and women generally are made happy by the same sorts of activities, but not always. most of the time, adult men and women achieve the same level of happiness from the same things, such as spending time with friends. Happy people generally like to be around other people. They tend to be extroverted and have a supportive network of close relationships. The level of subjective well being is relatively stable for most of us. Why is it so stable? One explanation is that people have a general set point for happiness, a marker that establishes the tone for one's life. Although specific events may temporarily elevate or depress one's moods, for example, a surprise promotion or a job loss, ultimately, people return to their general level of happiness. For some people, it is usually very low, and for others, it may be higher than average. The bottom line is money does not seem to buy happiness. Despite the ups and downs of life, most people tend to be reasonably happy, and they adapt to the trials and joys and delights of life by returning to a steady state level of happiness.